This is Lightning Power Lunch, presented by Reef Rum on the Lightning Audio Network with Dave Mishkin and Greg Linnelli.
They kind of took over. We had a stretch there. I don't know how long it was for those 2 goals, but that's tough to come back from. And Vaz played great, and the PK did a great job to keep us in the game and just come up short at the end.
Came up short in the end. I'm going to take the positive, maybe the biggest positive from the game last night. The game in which he scored a goal.
Yeah, the man we just heard.
I'll sacrifice maybe a loss on the road to a Western Conference team. I know Brian Engblom kind of got into, 3 things that he looks for with teams and what you need to do maybe to get into the playoffs. He kind of gave, his reasons for, I think it was doing well in the division, doing well on the road, and those bonus points out west.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, the fact that Colorado got 2 points is not going to hurt the Lightning in any kind of playoff push. Brian has said to me a lot about the road record. He is perplexed as to why the Lightning generally have struggled on the road during the regular season recently. Yeah. And it's true. This year they're 3-2-2. So I mean, it's hard to say they're struggling at this point on the road.
Yeah, 3-2-2. I mean, you could. What do they always say? Defend home field, defend home ice, and then go 500 on the road.
Problem was they started 0-3 at home before recovering.
They did. But I think I would be willing to look at this and say, I'm going to take the positive out of that game, and Braden Point scores a goal. Does that get him going? Because that may have longer-term implications for where this team wants to continue to go. Now, they lose last night. They put themselves in a position to get points. I mean, I think that's fair, and we can get into why that didn't happen. And the power play, once again, I think lets them down, to a degree, and we can get into the why. They go 11-7. Crozier back in the lineup. The Stu gets into a fight with Landeskog, and there were some other interesting elements to that game. But we'll take some questions at Bolts Radio.
Of course.
Lightning get a goal to start the game, and you're feeling pretty good. And I don't know if you want to say hard on a forecheck, but certainly in on a puck, turn the puck over, and Kucherov makes a play, and you're feeling pretty good, partner, that, okay, get a lead on the road. This is how you want to start. Your best offensive player comes through, and, of course, Colorado was able to answer after that with 3 goals. But I'm curious your biggest takeaways from the game last night and what happened really after Kucherov's goal.
So I'm actually not really inclined to take positives out of that game. I certainly hope that Braden Point uses this goal as a springboard, kind of like the Hagel goal helped Hagel, and he had a point streak and goal streak snapped last night. Whatever it takes to get Braden Point going would be a good thing. Well, we don't know yet if that is going to happen. Hopefully this is not some isolated goal. And he did have a chance. It wasn't as good as the one that he scored on, but he did have a similar type chance later in the third period. He didn't have as much room to lift the shot, and Wedgwood made the save.
Right.
But why am I not taking his – if you are taking positives out of it, or you're choosing
to
look at the game.
The one positive.
Sure, the one positive. I'm not really inclined to take a lot of positives out of this game because the Lightning came in playing their best hockey of the year. They'd won 5 in a row. They were taking on arguably the best team in the NHL this year. And to me, they just did not meet the moment. They did not play nearly well enough to match up with Colorado. So in the last 5 games, and I would even say the last 6 games before the Colorado game, that Chicago game is kind of hanging out there like it's almost like a hangnail for me because I keep mentioning that game, and it was a loss, and it was a bad loss for the Lightning because they gave up a goal in the final minute. But as we said after that game, like the Lightning dictated play much of that game. The way the Lightning played that game was the way they're going to need to play to have success, and in some ways they followed that up in the next 5. So I'm going to include the Chicago game, even though they didn't get the result. They outplayed the opponent in their last 6 games. Last night, they got outplayed. And I don't think it was particularly close, honestly, Greg. I mean, the first period, they came out of that period 1-1. You could make the argument that, they might have had a slight edge 5-on-5. Colorado had 2 very dangerous power plays and scored on the second of those.
Yeah.
But if you kind of get into the game, I mean, so shot attempts finished, they changed them a couple times. They finished dead even, 60-60. I don't think that this was an even game. The Lightning, they had a lot of shots that did not reach Scott Wedgwood. They were blocked. They missed the net. They out-attempted the Avs in the third period, which helped them get back even. But more significantly, shots on net, 33-24, Colorado. And I think if you look at the scoring chance number, it was a big advantage for Colorado. Brian Engblom who did the game with me, so he picked the Stars. He made Vasilevsky a star. I agree with that. This game would not have finished 3-2 if not for Vasilevsky.
That's true. He was very good.
Where are the Lightning? We were hoping that the Lightning would come into this game, and honestly, I was hoping they would play better. They didn't. Now, if they weren't taking on Colorado, it might not have been as noticeable, but they've taken on and beaten some good teams during the 5-game winning streak. We knew this was going to be a hard trip. Am I getting down on the team because they lost a game? No. I mean, I'm not sure that any of us expected they would just roll through this road trip. We've been talking about how much of a challenging road trip it was. But I guess the way the game unfolded, I thought Colorado was the better team. And so it's hard for me to come out of that game and say, well, positive vibes here, positive vibes there. I can get into some of the things the Lightning did well, but first of all, they made too many mistakes against a team that good. And as is usually the case, it seems, some of those mistakes really came back to bite them.
Yeah.
And the too many men on the ice penalty that they took in the first period that opened the door for Colorado to get a second power play after the Avs were extremely dangerous on their first power play. And it was less than a minute after the Lightning got out of that kill on a too many men penalty. I've been broadcasting games in the NHL for over 20 years. I've been doing pro hockey for over 30 years. I'm not sure I've ever seen a too many men on the ice penalty like that. Okay, it's a mix-up. You're under duress. Sometimes two guys jump on when one guy goes off. A little bit of confusion. Sometimes it's bad luck. A guy is going to the bench. The puck hits him. A guy jumps on, instinctively plays the puck before he should. Those are your typical too many men on the ice penalties, and none of them are great, honestly. You want to avoid those. On this one, the Lightning have the puck in their own end. Colorado is backed off. I think the Avs are going for a change, and J.J. Moser just takes it behind his own net. We've seen this so many times. The one D-man stays out there so the other players can get off the ice, and he has time. There's no pressure on him. How did the Lightning end up with, we heard 7 guys on the ice? I never even saw the replay to confirm that. But that is just, I'm sorry, it's an inexcusable penalty to take, particularly when you just escaped a penalty kill, where the Avs, their engine is starting to rev up. I know their power play percentage hasn't been great this year, but it looked great last night.
Yeah.
What do they have? 9 shots on 4 power play chances. So dollars to donuts, right? You go back to the box. The Lightning are missing a right-handed face-off guy. Did you notice McKinnon on his weak side chose the circle to force Gord on his weak side? Or if it had been Cirelli, it would have been Cirelli on his weak side.
Good point. Yeah, good point.
So Gord tried, he even turned his stick around to try and take it as a righty.
Yeah.
He lost 2 face-offs. And the second one, they got a puck to the net. Gord actually almost stole the puck at the blue line. He pressured the puck area, which I think it was Makar. I'm not sure, but he got it away to McKinnon, to Natchez, back to McKinnon. McKinnon makes a great play there, because when he goes to the net and takes the shot, Vasi makes the save, and I was like, how did it get to the other side? Because McDonough's there too. McKinnon just flicks the puck. It's in the air. Vasi's trying to smother it. McKinnon gets a stick on it to knock it to the other side, and Olofsson's sneaking down the back door and puts it in. So a period in which the Lightning maybe had an advantage 5-on-5, they kind of gift wrapped.
Yeah.
They didn't gift wrap the goal.
A self-inflicted wound.
It was for sure a self-inflicted wound. That game could have been, as well as Vasi was playing, that game could have been 1-0 Lightning going into the second. But it's not. Okay, now you're into the second period. The two goals that came, and Braden Point wasn't sure how far apart they were. It was 1 minute, 13 seconds. So in just over a minute, a 1-1 game becomes 3-1, completely changes the complexion of the game. So there was a little bit of bad luck working against the Lightning on both of those goals. I'm going to say that up front. The second goal for Colorado starts on a play that John Cooper thought should have been called for icing. It wasn't. I kind of felt the linesman had a tough game last night, full candor. And I'm not trying to put on my Lightning glasses here, but it kind of felt like most of the missed calls by the linesmen, not the referees, by the linesmen, went against the Lightning. This icing, which to me looked like an icing, I didn't see any reason why it shouldn't have been an icing, got waved off. There was another icing later in the game that should have been icing on Colorado, got waved off. And then one on the Lightning that I thought should have been waved off wasn't. I think that was in the third period. Anyway, this one proved to be costly because Hedman wins the race to reach the puck. Had they called icing, there would have been no goal. It would have been a whistle, face up back in the Colorado end. They wave off icing for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Olofsson is down there, and Hedman does not make the proper play with the puck. I don't know if he whiffed on it or it rolled off his stick because he got to it first.
He had more than enough time.
He had time like that. So Landeskog is lurking. I mean, Landeskog eventually stole the puck. So he was in the neighborhood, but a hard rim there, no problem. You know, you're basically out of trouble. Easy for me to say, right?
Sure.
But that's a turnover. More, I would say, of an unforced turnover than a forced turnover, but it's a turnover. And then the second bit of bad luck, Landeskog tries to set up Jack Drury at the left circle. Drury completely misses the shot, but it like pinballs off of him and goes directly across right to Olofsson in the slot. And this guy can shoot. I mean, I remember seeing him in Buffalo a few years ago, like a power play goal machine. That was basically all he did in Buffalo was score. When he scored, it was on the power play because he can shoot. And he went to Vegas last year, and now he's in Colorado. I mean, he's up to 5 goals with his 2 goals last night. But, I mean, you give him a shot like that in the slot, and Vasi is expecting the shot to come from Drury. So that's basically an unstoppable shot. A little bit of bad luck, but, I mean, the icing, non-call, and the bad luck off Drury's stick notwithstanding, a play there behind the net means no goal. So now it's 2-1. The third goal starts with an offensive zone faceoff for the Lightning. And Braden Point had a pretty good night in the circle. He lost that faceoff. Braden Point went 8-5 in the faceoff circle. So he's starting to get some games where he's over 50%, but he loses this draw to Nelson. And I give full credit to Sam Alinsky. That is a great pass. It's a pass off the boards, but it's probably, what would you say, maybe 150 feet? Like, and he hits Colton in stride. So that's on Crozier. It's not an easy play. And Crozier, as we said, is coming back to the lineup after having missed 8 straight games. But Crozier does let Colton go wide on him, has a lane to the net, and now bad luck number 2. Colton goes wide on his backhand. He puts it off the post. The puck is not going in the net. It's sliding through the blue paint, and Vasilevsky, an instinctive move, just closes his right leg, and the puck hits the leg and goes in the net. But you're giving up the breakaway off an offensive zone faceoff. So on the one hand, we can say a couple of really well-executed plays by Colorado. On the other hand, we can say, the Lightning have to own it. And that was it. Those are the only goals that Colorado scored, but they had lots of chances for the rest of the game. And once it became 3-1, I think we saw why Colorado is ranked. They came into last night's game, 4th in team defense. They D'd up. The Lightning had a really hard time generating chances, and that includes the power play, which continues to struggle. The goal that Point scored is just a great individual effort. I mean, Taves is there. That's just, and I'll use this word, Braden Point's brilliance. There aren't too many players in the NHL that can score a goal like that. McKinnon is one of them. I mean,
That's called
McKinnon can
making a
score a goal
play.
like that.
Making
That
a
is
play.
making a play.
Yeah.
And you'd hope that it would have sparked the Lightning. They had a few chances after that. Gergensons had a chance, and I do want to talk about the Gord line. And then in the 6-on-5, they had a scramble play. But again, like the puck stayed out. Why did it stay out? Avs blocked some shots. I mean, Cale Makar, we were talking about him yesterday. I'm like, as a defensive defenseman, Cale Makar is, I think, considered good. I don't know that he's considered
Elite.
in the elite
Yeah.
category, but I mean, that hurt him. He blocked a Kucherov shot during the 5-on-6 for Colorado. That hurt Makar, and then it came back to Kucherov, and Makar somehow got a stick on a second Kucherov shot to deflect it wide. Makar may have saved the team's lead right there with those plays. And so the Lightning couldn't get the tying goal. But, I mean, I came out of that game saying the Lightning simply didn't play well enough to win. Vasilevsky kept them in the game. But against a weaker opponent, you might have been able to get away with it. Against Colorado, you couldn't. So I'll punt it back to you, and then we can kind of get into – I mean, I did think there were some positives. The Yanni Gord line had a fantastic game.
Yeah.
And-
Which continues to be a theme here.
Yeah, it
You know.
does.
I would just say this, watching the point goal again. I mean, that's bar down. That's a hell of a shot. I
Yeah,
mean, you're right.
that's what I
That is-
mean.
That's like one of the elite plays you're going to see really all year on your backhand. Did they waste a Vasilevsky start?
A little bit.
Yeah, they did, and that's unfortunate because I think there was a little bit of underlying tone about Vasi's not who he was 5 years ago. I mean, I could come back and say we're all probably not as good as we were 5-10 years ago. That being said, he's been very good, and I think what was even more difficult to swallow last night was that he did play very well against an elite team, and you weren't able to come away with points. I think we're surprised when the Lightning don't come away with points in a game. Yeah, because you feel, based off of the makeup of their team, and of course that's not going to happen every game, they're going to lose games where they get outplayed, and that's just the nature of this. But the Lightning, the way they have the roster, and because of their goaltending, you do feel like they're going to be in every game. And that if you can somehow manage to get a point when your goaltender is playing exceptionally well, those are ones that hurt too. Because, how many times are you going to play at that level against an elite team who feels like they're throwing everything but the kitchen sink at you, and you aren't able to reward him necessarily and to get points. So that part was, I think, in addition to point scoring on a positive side, partner.
Yeah.
The negative side, the big picture taking away from me, and we will get into the power play and everything we want, is that your goaltender had one of his better games this year against an elite team, and you couldn't come away with points. That's where that stings a little bit, and you move on, and that's the beauty of an 82-game regular season. You can't cry about it. Got a game tomorrow.
That's all you can do. And look, had the Avs not grabbed a 3-1 lead early in the second, who knows if the game might have looked a little different. You are at altitude. We talked about that a lot yesterday, and now you're chasing. And the Avs, they were kind of in the driver's seat. They're a great defensive team. I mean, I saw it in practice yesterday, but the stats back that up. You give them a 2-goal lead on their home ice, and they basically leaned on the Lightning for the entire second period, which is the period of the long change. I mean, I didn't think the Lightning necessarily got caught out there too long, but it looked like they had a little trouble generating juice. I'll use that word again. And maybe the altitude had something to do with that, coupled with the fact that they were down. Score effects mattered.
Right.
And, if you're looking at a 2-2 game, maybe things could have unfolded a little differently. Gord, Holmberg, and Gergensen seemed completely unaffected by the altitude, though. I mean,
Yeah.
they were the one line. Yeah, there were a couple of shifts where they had to play in the defensive zone. They are so buttoned up at moving the puck up the ice, and it didn't matter who Jared Bednar threw out against them. They were out there against the McKinnon line. They're out there against the Nelson line. They're out there against the fourth line for Colorado. And they were so in sync cycling pucks. They were especially dynamic in the first period, I thought. Now, did it lead to a ton of scoring chances? Not a ton, but some. I mean, Wedgwood made a really good save on Holmberg. I think that was in the first period, running the doorstep. And then he did stop Girgensons in the third, where Girgensons had a step on the defender. At that point, it was 3-2. So if he can finish that, it's 3-3. They are a meat and potatoes line, though. I mean, you know, they're not going to necessarily be able to finish like Point did, right? But they required the goalie to make a couple of really tough saves.
That's fair.
Unfortunately, and this is a game in which the Lightning got goals from Kucherov and Point. I think that possibly Point was made a star in the building. Yeah, he was. I'm sorry. Like, there was a huge drop-off among the forward lines once you got past the Gord line. Let me look at the minutes. I haven't actually looked at them yet. Yanni played 17:54. Girgensons played 15:31, and Holmberg played a little bit less, 13:13. I mean, and now Yanni had penalty kill time.
Right,
there was a lot of penalty kill time.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, for him to play almost 18 minutes, like Coop was like, who's going? Who's not only going, but who is actually tilting the ice for us? Gordo, you're out there. We saw a lot of them, or maybe I just noticed them a lot because when they were out there, they were dictating things. The other three lines, and the Lightning had one line with two players, Gensel and Cirelli, I thought they didn't do nearly as much. I would even make the argument that the James line maybe had the second most impactful game as a trio, but they weren't nearly as impactful as the Gord line. I thought Kucherov got some jump from that early goal and was pretty dynamic in the first period, but he was quieter after that until the end with the 6-on-5. So the stats tell us that Kuch finished with 13 shot attempts. 6 were blocked, a couple at the end of the game, as I mentioned. But, you know, from the beginning of the second period until the end, when they pulled the goalie, I didn't really notice him as much. I thought Cirelli had a very quiet game. I thought Hagel had a quiet game. Gensel, relatively speaking, had a quiet game. Point scored, but I'm not sure, did we really notice that he was affecting play in a positive way for the Lightning? So, you know, it kind of follows, like, when you are not being able to make the other team uncomfortable, you know, you're not going to notice these players that are kind of the movers and shakers on the Lightning as much. The one line that made Colorado uncomfortable was Gord, Girgensons, and Holmberg.
The meat and potatoes line.
They were the meat and potatoes line. Yeah. But you can be a meat and potatoes line and not do what they're doing. Sure. Like, they aren't just meat and potatoes. They are executing. They are so in sync in where they put pucks, how they cycle. Like, it is a tough assignment for the other team to deal with what they are throwing at you. So they certainly had a very, very good game. I thought the Lightning D as a whole struggled a little bit, honestly. Yeah. I mean, mentioned the play in the second goal. Like, Destu had the fight with Landeskog. I love to see that. I love to see that Destu is playing a fearless game. But, you know, there was just a lot of hijinks. There was one play in the second period where Destu has the puck in the offensive zone, and his stick blade goes over the puck. Remember that play? And then an Avs player broke the other way. I mean, some of that is the pressure Colorado was throwing.
Crozier got beat.
Crozier had the problem on the Colton goal.
Right.
But, I mean, let's cut him some slack. Like, that's a tough assignment. Tough building, altitude, maybe the best team in the NHL coming out of the gates. He's missed almost a month. I mean, he got his legs underneath him, and, you know, I think he's going to be fine. But, again, I don't mean to be picking on, you know, the team's game. They'd won 5 in a row. They played very, very well. Now the key is to bounce back. But I'm probably repeating myself. I just think that against a quality opponent, and maybe the very best team in the NHL, based on what the stats show us, based on their lineup, watching them, they can score, they can defend, they have more depth, I think, than they did previously. They have good goaltending. They do. Wedgwood played well last night. even though I kind of thought we might see Mackenzie Blackwood because Blackwood's been injured and just coming back. But they started Wedgwood last night. This is a very, very good team, and they deserve to win. They outplayed the Lightning last night.
They got to get Bjorkstrand going.
Yeah.
I mean, 1 goal in 13 games.
We haven't talked about the power play. The power play was a very quiet 0 for 3, had only 2 shots. You know who had both shots? Bjorkstrand.
Which is nice.
And he's on the second unit.
Right.
One was a redirection, I think. That was the third period power play, I think. I don't think either of the shots we would call dangerous on the power play, which means that the top unit, however much time they were out there of the 6 minutes the Lightning had on the power play, had no shots on net.
It's a tough situation when you're relying on a few guys to provide some of that offense. I think the track record indicates Bjorkstrand will get on track. Then the only way he's going to get on a good path is to keep shooting. Mm-hmm. And Hedman's got to get going. I know we said that. Those 2 guys, I think, are starting to stick out. Of course, Point, but you're hoping maybe the goal last night can jumpstart him. Greg says, I'd rather not have a power play at this point if we're down. We look better 5-on-5, and it seems to be just a time killer. In addition to that, Hedman has been playing way below the standard on offense and D. Greg also says, thank you guys for the show. Appreciate the time. You know, Eric made the point on the post-game show that it is the power play feels like it's sucking the life out of the team.
Yeah. The top unit is very frustrated. I actually do think the second unit in more limited time has done more, certainly over the last several games.
So what do you make of understanding? I'm asking you a question that if the coaching staff knew it, they would fix it. But what is the biggest difference from last year to this year in terms of why they can't get going? You know, because the personnel is basically the same. I mean, Bjorkstrand's here for a full year, but I mean, what is
the
it?
very simple answer, and I don't know how many power play goals the Lightning scored overall last year. It's pretty easy to look up, but I do know that between Gensel and Point, they accounted for 33 power play goals. Gensel had 17, leading the NHL. Point was right behind him with 16. So even though I think they were still looking to address the Stamkos absence, we'll call it that, and they tried all these different people at the circle, they tried different setups and all of that, kind of when we got through the season and you looked at the Lightning's power play production, 2 of their top guys, and of course Kucherov had a boatload of points on the power play, but they accounted for 33 power play goals. How many power play goals have they scored this year between the 2 of them? 1, I think, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think Gensel has a power play goal, and Point has 1 on a tip. So, like, what is the difference? Just like black and white, they are not getting the same kind of production from the top unit. Why is that? I mean, right now it's probably as much confidence as anything else. I mean, you saw how Colorado zip the puck around. It's not like the Avalanche have more talented players than the Lightning on the top power play unit. I mean, they have a lot of talented players, for sure. But if you can throw Point and Kucherov and, you know, Gensel and Hedman out there and then a 5th guy, like you have a lot of talent out there. They are not zipping it around, though. They're not making the penalty kill unit scramble. You got the feeling that on all 4 of Colorado's power plays last night, maybe with the exception of the last one, I thought the Lightning did a better job of getting pucks down the ice more regularly on the 4th one, the last one that Colorado had. But even on that one, I think they had a couple of shots. The Lightning's penalty kill was a little bit in scramble mode. So that's when you see that, you know a power play kind of has it going, even if they don't score. Colorado had its power play going last night, even though they went 1 for 4. And not 3 for 4. I mean, but the 1 was an important goal because it got the game tied.
Let's go to, what is that? Tall Geese 66?
Tall Geese.
Tall
66.
Geese 66.
Yeah.
Agree, the second power play follows a simpler approach and is more effective because of it.
Yes, and I just said that, but even that is not accounting for goals.
Yeah.
Hagel scoring in the power play against Dallas, but at the time that he scored it, he was out on power play 2. They elevated him to power play 1 yesterday, and it didn't really help.
The other thing, too, is, I mean, your second power play unit, that's kind of what they're supposed to do. It's a simpler approach, and they're just not going to see as much ice time as the first, although maybe John Cooper tries to send a message if things really go that route. Look,
they pulled the first power play unit off 1 minute into. They had a third period power play, and the first unit was out for a minute, and they got nothing done. And Coop pulled them off the ice and put the second unit out.
I mean, your first unit's going to have to figure this out. I mean, you're not. You can't go the whole season and say, okay, you know, we're going to live and die by our second power play unit, more so than the first.
Right.
So I get that. That being said, in the short term, John Cooper's going to try and mix and match and try and find the best solutions that work, and it could be taking some of that ice time away from the first power play unit. I just don't know what your other options would be outside of doing something like that, outside of the guys on that first power play unit have to be better. History shows there's a track record they will, but if they don't, the longer this goes on, it's going to force Julian Brisebois to do something. Because the power play is too big of a weapon for this team, and they rely on it a lot for it to be like this through an 82-game season. I'm not telling you they won't make the playoffs, but the power play, most elite teams or most playoff teams, partner, have a good power play, has to at least get back to average.
Yeah.
And that's what you're hoping for. And that's why, like, when we say we're not panicking, and maybe that's the wrong word to use, I mean, eventually star players do figure it out. Could there be an off year? Sure, of course that happens. But they got to figure it out sooner, or else John Cooper is either going to have to work with what he has, or they're going to have to really change some things up here. And it could be personnel. It could be how they are set up on the power play again. Don't know. That's for John Cooper and his staff to figure out. But right now, I think it's fair to say it's not working.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
well, certainly.
Do people feel like it will get better because of the personnel that they do have, or do people feel like this is broken and something needs to change?
I honestly
don't know.
believe it's mostly confidence and swagger.
I would agree with you on that.
And that's fixable once you start scoring. But
yes,
it's like the chicken and the egg, right? You need the confidence to start scoring. You need to start scoring to get the confidence. So that's why this can be a like self-defeating, perpetual prophecy. That was a long sentence, but you know what I mean. Like the longer you struggle, the harder it is to break out of it.
Yep. Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that. Not panicking on my front. I don't think on your front. I think this is why guys get paid a lot of money to eventually figure it out. Mm-hmm. And I think they will. It's just unusual that they're struggling this much. And you wonder, too, Chief talks about this all the time, that he's even surprised that players that reach this level, they still can be fragile mentally a little bit in terms of their confidence. What does he tell the story of Dave Andreychuk where, you feel like you go 4 games without a goal and you feel like you're never going to score again. And this is a guy who's scored over 600 goals in his career. Maybe I'm exaggerating a bit.
Because it's hard to score.
It is.
It's hard to score.
So I do acknowledge that. And I wonder, not that the team read into Kucherov's comments in the offseason, if they even read into them at all, but if they did, was there a little bit of doubt that, against the good teams, we struggled? How good are we on the power? We need to be better. I need that one time on the other end. We didn't have it.
The Lightning, last night they faced a very good penalty kill unit that came in just behind the Lightning percentage-wise, and now is probably ahead of the Lightning percentage-wise. But during this stretch of time where they have struggled, they haven't faced bad teams necessarily, but they have faced teams that have had struggles on the penalty kill, and those teams have kind of eaten the Lightning up. I mean, the Dallas team, I know the Lightning got a power play goal, but the Lightning didn't look very good on their power play against Dallas. I think Dallas came in with a pretty average, below average penalty kill. I know the Lightning have seen teams where I'm a little surprised that this team is struggling on the penalty kill. down in the 70% area, and the Lightning have not been really able to exploit that. So this notion of, against the teams, whether it's bad teams, non-playoff teams, or teams with subpar penalty kills, and usually over time there's a confluence there, right? Like if your penalty kill isn't very good, you're probably not going to make the playoffs. The Lightning haven't been able to do damage against those teams yet either. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to keep saying it's early, but I mean, we are 13 games in. So there's a long season ahead for this team to try and figure out the power play.
Yeah.
I think the first thing that needs to happen, though, and this is great in-depth analysis, Greg, but something good needs to happen for the top unit.
Is it like the Joe Theismann, you need to score points to win games? When he was
yeah,
which was always a good line.
Look, in the first period of the first game against Ottawa, their power play looked quite good. They scored 2 power play goals in the first period. They had it going there. It's dried up since then.
Sometimes the basic points are the most valid, and that's what I love about this. Garrett says, tough loss in Denver. Why was that icing waved off on the second?
Yeah, I never got an explanation.
I don't think John Cooper.
I didn't even know. Like, I saw it, and I thought, why was that not icing? But I'm like, all right, well, they must have waved it off. Maybe I missed something. And it was a weird game with the replay. So the Avalanche did the game side by side with TNT, and the monitor that we had, Brian and I had, was mostly it was the Avalanche telecast. So the things that I was curious about necessarily weren't shown. They were showing the goal. They weren't really showing the icing. But later we saw John Cooper, and you couldn't hear what he was saying, but you could read his lips. And he was like on the front of the bench asking in an animated way the officials, like, why was that not icing? You could read his lips. So maybe during the intermission he went and looked at it and was like, all right, that's why they waved it off. But at the time he was surprised too. Sometimes the officials miss stuff. So I'm going to get on a little bit of a soapbox here, Greg, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
This is completely unrelated to anything that happened in the game last night. But I saw it twice, and I didn't like it. And I didn't like it at all. And if I'm a representative of the league, I would have liked it even less. The officials missed an offside that shouldn't have been called, but was, that went against Colorado. This was in the third period. The goal line was out on the ice. They tried to clear the zone. Girgensons is right at the blue. Whoever the defenseman was for Colorado tried to hold it in and made an attempt to hold it in and pushed it back to the offensive zone. The linesman called offside. Replay showed it. To me, Brian thought it was offside. I didn't think it was offside. We saw a replay. To me, it never left the blue. They missed it. Okay, so they blew the whistle. It was an offside. It shouldn't have been an offside. Whoever is running the scoreboard at Ball Arena showed that thing on the huge scoreboard. And the fans were like, oh, everybody hates the Avalanche. Like that's what that does. They were upset with the call initially. And then on this giant scoreboard, they show it. They embarrass the linesman there. Okay? Later in the third period, Landeskog is trying to enter the offensive zone. I think it might have been Girgensons again, actually. Girgensons checked him. If it wasn't him, it was one of the other Lightning players. And there's a little bit of a hold. I mean, it wasn't flagrant. Landeskog fell down. They showed the replay again.
Yeah.
Like, can you believe? Like, whoever's operating this is like, let's show this replay of the non-call. You know what? How about let's show all of the non-calls that went against the other team? How about you show that icing that should have been called icing that led to the Avalanche's second goal? You know what? That is just, I didn't like that at all. Because all it does is rile up the fans. Look, if you're looking at an offside challenge for a goal, that's different. Show that replay on the big screen. But if you're going to cherry pick every call that you feel goes against your team and literally broadcasted on this giant scoreboard, that reflects badly on these officials, and fans on our show might be like, well, the officials need to be called. calls are missed. They're missed on both sides. I didn't like it. And that's the only building I've ever seen something like that happen. I don't remember them doing it in the past in Colorado. By the way, I love that building. Like, it's a great building. They have a great fan base. I said as much in the final. You know, I thought that they love their team. They have a great team. That I didn't like. I didn't like it at all.
It's a fair point. You can get on your soapbox.
You know where I'm going with this.
I do. I do. Chris says road wins are tough. That they are, my friend.
Yeah.
That they are. FK322. One very bad period sandwiched by two fairly good ones. That too many men on the ice penalty seemed to take the wind out of their sails. Nice to see a sign of life from Point in the third period. I mean, look, you disagree a little bit.
I don't know that I would
two
say
good
the third
periods.
period was a fairly good period.
Yeah.
They gave up chances in the third period. Vasi had to rob Makar in the third period. Remember that save he made with the glove?
I do.
Lightning were still giving up some looks, and Colorado was D'ing up. Like they were like, okay, it's 3-2. We are going to limit chances. The Lightning got a couple. They were trying. I'm not saying they weren't trying, but they tried to make a push.
Yeah.
I thought they got outplayed in the game, and it wasn't only in the second period that they got outplayed.
That's fair.
I'll just say that.
Timothy says Bolts need to get the power play going. It was the difference at the end.
Well, yes, 3-2, and the Avs got a power play going. The Lightning didn't. That is true. Maybe even a good-looking power play in which you don't score gives you a little momentum, and you can build on that. Although Point's goal came right after their last power play, in which they didn't score.
Michael says, trying not to be too much of a doomer, but Hetty really showing his age to start the season. Hope he can turn it around. I mean, we've
talked about him. I think he's been up and down this year, but I mean, he's had on this trip, he's had 2 turnovers that led to opposition goals.
And the thing is, he knows that, so I'm not sure. You have to just hope your star players. I mean, this is the part. If your star players aren't your star players, it changes things. FK322 also writes, Vasi wasn't really the problem. Too many careless defensive mistakes. I mean, I think we highlighted he was.
Yeah.
He was.
I don't think we certainly didn't suggest that he was the problem, but maybe FKA is just seconding that notion.
Garrett, why was the too many men called when the two players were within 2 to 3 feet of the bench on a change play, not involved with the play or in physical contact with an opposing player?
Well, Garrett, I confess, I never actually saw the replay, but people were telling us that there were 7 players on the ice. So it may have been that the linesmen were just like, you're not giving us a choice here.
Yeah, I mean,
usually they give you some latitude.
It's got to be really obvious.
It had to
right?
have been. It had to have been. Garrett's point generally is right, though. Like usually if a player going off is close to the bench and the player jumps on and it's not really involved with the play, they'll let it go. This must have been flagrant.
You know, it just spurned a conversation, partner, that maybe we can have for the other show, but something you just said probably should resonate a little bit more when we start talking about offsides. Because you could probably call a penalty. They give you some leeway. It's not going to really affect the play. How many times have we seen the blade come up, and it doesn't really affect?
Yeah.
But they call it, and it's, I guess by the letter of the law, it is correct. It sounds like there's a little bit more leeway on another opportunity to call a penalty that they don't always. That there's more leeway in that transaction than there is on that one.
Offside is black and white. Now you can make the argument that on any potential offside, the linesman will just be like, I'm going to take the easy way out and not blow my whistle because the team can just challenge it if it's a goal. In this instance, on the one that I was talking about, they did blow the whistle, but they're doing their best. There isn't an official in the NHL who isn't trying to do a good job.
Yeah.
It's extremely difficult to see and catch everything.
And it's a thankless job.
Yeah.
I really do. I mean, it is a thankless job. And you're right. It is extremely fast. I mean,
on that play, the linesman who called it, he was blocked a little bit by whoever the Avs defenseman was. The Avs defenseman's back was in between the linesman and the puck.
Right.
And he's doing the best he can. Like, he's making a judgment call, but I believe that he believed that the puck came out. It was very close.
Yeah.
I just didn't like that they kind of singled out that linesman by like, look at this huge replay on this giant scoreboard and see how you messed up. Right?
That's kind of how that went, right?
Our team got robbed.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Nick says, we seem to struggle massively on the power play zone entries yesterday, and that may be a credit to the Avs, but it feels like more of a problem for the power play this year than in the past.
That is fair. I mean, that has been part of, and again, I think it's more the first unit. The second unit isn't out there as much, so honestly, they don't have as much of an opportunity to re-enter the zone, but I feel like it is more the first unit that is struggling to re-enter the zone. So I had a conversation with Rick Bowness several years ago. In fact, I'm sure I've said this on the show before, so our longtime listeners, viewers may have heard me say this, but I'll repeat it because I've always remembered it. Rick Bowness ran the Lightning's penalty kill when he was the associate coach. He's like, the 3 things that you can do to make your life as easy as possible on the penalty kill. Number 1, win faceoffs. Number 2, get the puck down the ice when you have a chance. And number 3, make it hard on the power play team to re-enter the zone. Now, sometimes that's not it, right? Like, the other team will have possession in your own end, and as a penalty kill unit, you have to react to that. But he's like, if you can do those 3 things, you will make killing the penalty a lot easier on yourself. And we see it time and time again. I mean, let's take it from the Lightning's perspective as a penalty kill unit. If you lose the face-off, you're putting yourself in a tough spot. And that's how the Avs scored their goal last night in the power play. The Lightning lost the face-off. How many times do we say this? You have a chance to get it out. You don't. You're extending your shift. You're giving the power play unit an extra lifeline to make a play. That puck, if you have a chance to get it down the ice, has to get it down the ice. And then the third one, which it's not always something you can do, but if you can do it, it really helps, and it frustrates the power play unit, is preventing them from re-entering the zone. And right now, like, a lot of these things are going against the Lightning's power play. I mean, they don't always lose the face-off. We've seen some games where they've done pretty well on power play face-offs. One in the first period, was it Cirelli? I forget who won the draw, but like, they won the draw. It came out between the point men. So it was Point. Because Kucherov was lined up. Point was on his weak side, but he was trying to win it on his backhand for a Kucherov one-timer. It went too far away from Kucherov, and Hedman was over toward the boards. So it worked as a clear, even though they won the face-off. But the other 2 things, the other team, I think, is getting the puck down the ice when they have a chance, which is short-circuiting ozone time for the Lightning. And then the fan is right. There have been, I mean, it's not every time, but there have been a fair number where they can't enter the zone. The Avs were stacking the blue line, and they were disrupting some entry attempts.
I think that's a fair point. And, you know, it's a copycat league, so we have seen over the last handful of years that play where you gain center ice, then you do the drop pass, and you have a guy come with speed. You could do a simpler approach where you do more of a dump and chase, and this is where maybe some people have talked about the power play. The second power play unit might be a little bit more adept at doing something like that. They can
carry it in, though. Like, I think that's how they've gotten it in.
They can.
Usually.
Kucherov usually is the guy. Let's not beat around the bush. He usually
or Point.
Yeah, because of their speed and their playmaking ability, have the ability to bring the puck into the zone to get set up. You know, whether it's Kucherov dangling, Point coming with speed, or Kuch finding Point, or Kuch making a pass to get set up. There's an art to it, and there's a timing component to that as well. When that timing is off, because everybody's kind of in motion at the same time, you can look a little disjointed. And I think it's fair to say that the Lightning look a little disjointed. And I don't know what the approach is there, because you want to work with what you have, not reinvent the wheel, but maybe there's going to be some tinkering that needs to be done. Colin says Gretzky's office was behind the net. Curious if we could see them try Kuch down there. It seems like the Bolts are experimenting with various looks on the power play. Why not try it?
That's an interesting thought. It's not really where we've usually seen Kucherov on the power play. He has made plays, though, from behind the net.
Yeah. You know,
I think it's about, I maintain, it's less about where they are in the ice and more about execution. And the execution is going to be tied to, using these words again, confidence and swagger. They need to make plays more quickly than the penalty kill unit can react to those plays.
Yeah.
Right now, the opposite is happening. The penalty kill unit is able to react in time to whatever the Lightning are trying to do and either disrupting it or being in a position so that if a pass is completed, the guy who receives the pass doesn't really have an option to get a puck to the net. The penalty kill unit is not scrambling. The penalty kill unit is set. So if Kucherov goes to Hedman, penalty kill unit is set. Hedman goes, if Kucherov is at the right circle, Hedman goes to the other side, Bjorkstrand, let's say, penalty kill unit is set. They go to the corner, penalty kill unit is set. They try a seam pass, stick in the way, deflects out. What we need to see, and what we've seen a lot from the Lightning's number one power play, is the puck movement is quicker than what the penalty kill unit can do to react. And that's when holes open up. But to move the puck quickly, sometimes that is tied to just mojo, right? Swagger.
Kind of goes back to what you said about the confidence.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot to that.
But look, if Jeff Halpern's like, Cooch, go behind the net, I think the penalty kill unit would be like, wait a minute, what's happening here?
Yeah.
And there may be some value to that.
Tonight, enjoy some Refrum, smooth, versatile, now pouring at Benchmark International. Order a Tropical Wave or Lightning Mule, and taste why fans are switching. Refrum is a premium craft Florida local rum built on authenticity, quality, and easy drinkability. Ask for relief. Rum by name. Go Bolts. Enjoy responsibly. All right, let's get to some more.
Hey, I just want to
questions.
mention, because these are some teams that we've been talking about, but like, how about Anaheim?
Would they put up?
They laid the hammer on Florida last night,
yeah.
7-3. They beat Detroit. Detroit lost here in Vegas last night, 1-0. Kind of a pitcher's duel. But
Yeah,
we were talking about Carlson and Gauthier. Gauthier had a hat trick
he did.
last night.
He did. You said Stamkos scored, right?
Stamkos scored with less than a second left. He was in his office. Like, that was a long-range shot, but he got all of it. It got Nashville a point. They tied the game, extremely late against Minnesota, but then Minnesota ended up winning, and I'm not sure it was overtime of the shootout. A lot of games, again, last night went to overtime in the shootout, so a lot of three-point games. Unfortunately, the Lightning got 0 points.
Nick says, I was in Ball Arena last night as I live in Colorado and definitely think we tie that game up if Gergensons doesn't take that penalty. Until that points goal had sucked all the air out of the building. So
the Gergensons penalty was cross-checking. Brian, actually, you heard him. Brian didn't think that was a penalty.
Yeah.
He didn't like the call at all. Usually when a guy goes, falling into the boards, though, the referee's like, wait a minute, what just happened? I'm not sure if I agree with the fan there. I thought the Lightning handled that penalty kill pretty well. Did it eat up 2 minutes fairly late in the third? It did. But, so, the Lightning got an offensive zone faceoff with exactly 3 minutes left. They finished the kill. So the kill was at 5:34 with 5:34 left. So with 3:34 left, Gergensons came out of the box. They finished that shift. There was a whistle, maybe even been an icing against Colorado. I can't remember. Ozone faceoff for the Lightning. 3 minutes left, down by 1. That's a tad early for Coop to pull Vasilevsky. Now, his unit was fresh because they just killed a penalty. So most of the guys who, maybe other than Hagel or Sorelli, most of the guys who would be out on the 6-on-5 were not killing the penalty. I don't think Gensel had a long penalty kill shift. He would have been out there. When Coop is pulling the goalie that early, down by 1, and to me 3 minutes is pretty early, I understand he had an opportunity with the offensive zone faceoff to set it up. Usually that means he feels like they're not really generating enough 5-on-5. If they were buzzing and applying a lot of pressure, he might have waited. In another game, in another situation, I think, and actually most times, he would wait a little bit longer, maybe about 2 minutes left to pull the goalie. The fact that he pulled the goalie early kind of tells you what he thought about what they were doing 5-on-5. That's a little bit of, conjecture on my part, but I've seen John Cooper coach enough games and pull the goalie in enough games to know 3 minutes down by 1 is a little bit early, even if it meant ozone face-off and you were able to get your
Right.
6 guys on the ice fairly fresh.
Andrew says that the power play is struggling in large part because they are so left-handed heavy.
But they don't have to be. I mean, they could put Bjorkstrand out there. They'd have 3 lefties and 2 righties.
I think we're coming down for us more about execution and just swagger than anything else. But look, the longer it goes, I think all options are legitimate at this point. Jack says, I think the team looked good. Hard to complain about 2 minutes of bad luck, but you do have to make your own luck. Dave, you are now the power play coach. What's the first thing you have them change?
So just to clarify, Jack, I didn't say that they lost the game because of bad luck. Yes, you're right. I mean, Colorado did well on both of those goals to make plays, but there was luck involved for sure. I thought that it was like, had they played really well and just had 2 bad minutes, that would be one thing. I did not think that they were at the rudder. I'm using that expression again. I thought Colorado was at the rudder for much of the final 40 minutes, and even for a bit of the first period, honestly. If I'm the power play coach, I would probably ask to be dismissed because I don't really know enough about it. But it would seem to me that part of the problem is that Oliver Bjorkstrand is in a goal-scoring slump. If Bjorkstrand were scoring 5-on-5, he has 1 goal. It was the first goal of the year. So he's gone, 12 games without a goal.
1 goal in 13 games.
1 goal in the 13 games they played. And that was a power play goal. I think the original plan was to have Bjorkstrand out there. I would maybe go back to that, put Cooch at the right circle, and just see if they can get it going. Once you replace Bjorkstrand with a lefty, which is really what they have to do because they don't have other righty options unless you're going to put a defenseman out there like a Radish, then you really are looking at putting Kucherov at the left circle. And, I mean, it seems like that's not as much his preference. Not that he is the one to decide all of these, options, but he has said he likes being at the right circle.
What adjustments do you make? And this is where we just don't know enough about it. Do you start saying, look, after 3 passes, somebody shoot the puck? You get 1, 2, boom. 1, 2, boom. Just to nobody's thinking out there. You're just like, okay, I got to let it rip.
I go back to the power play they had in Utah with the first 10 seconds. They had 4 shots and for sure 3 scoring chances.
Do you do that? You know what would be interesting? And everybody wants to tinker with Kucherov a little bit, and you're just hard-pressed not to because of who he is. Look, he sets up where he sets up. I know they've tried to move him to the other side of the ice, get him moving, and I understand that. But to the one listener's point about him behind the net, I mean, what if you had him where Jake Ensel was? Where he could almost do that power move coming behind the net? Because now you also give him the ability to pass in the bumper, whoever's set up there. You still can do the cross ice, just from a different angle. But you also allow him to circle back around on his left side and still be in a good shooting position. Now, that to me would be something I would entertain. But I'm really hard-pressed, partner, to just start saying, we've got to change with one of the best offensive players in the game and where he sets up. I'm hard-pressed to do that. I've said with Hedman, I think he needs to find a way to get a shot through. I think that's fair. I don't want to start reinventing the wheel with Kucherov.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that is, I don't want to say desperation, but if you believe your best players have gotten to this level because they can figure it out, let him figure it out. Again, if we're 25, 30 games into this and they're still performing below expectations, maybe we can have a bigger conversation. I'm very hesitant to do that, but if you were to force me to make a one decision, it's either I think there's got to be more of a shooting mentality, less passing, but would you entertain the idea of having Kucherov closer to the goal line where he can kind of, like McKinnon did. When he did that power move.
McKinnon has a lot of movement, though. Colorado has a lot of movement to their power play, even though McKinnon's basically the
It's
left
a fair
circle.
point. It's different.
And remember, Cooch was like, I don't like power plays that have a lot of movement. He's like,
And
not
that's
sure.
what I mean.
That's what he
Right.
said
Yeah,
in his session with the media at the start of the season. And again, Jeff Halpern's the coach. So, coach is the power play. So they're not always static. Sometimes there is some movement to their power play. The Bjorkstrand power play goal at the beginning of the first period against Ottawa, there was movement. Bjorkstrand kind of walked down the middle, right?
Sure.
And Gensel fed him the puck. So I'll just leave it with this. The Lightning are not going to stand pat. They haven't stood pat. They've tried different options. Bjorkstrand's not on that first unit anymore. They've tried Cirelli there. They've tried Hagel there. Maybe we'll see some other players get moved around. But I'm kind of with you that, like, the unit has worked, even without Stamkos. Last year it did work. They finished, whatever it was, 5th in the NHL. At some point you have to believe that it's going to kick into higher gear. We'll see what they do tomorrow against Vegas.
We're going to be live tomorrow for our show.
Yes.
So we'll make sure we do that.
Well before the morning skate for the Lightning. The Lightning have a scheduled practice today, so they may have an optional tomorrow, but all this will be happening after we're off the air.
We'll have a lot to discuss, I'm sure.
Yes.
Game tomorrow is at 10 o'clock Eastern. So
Yes, and then just a programming note for the fans, because we are flying back, the team, flying back on Friday. So we have elected to actually do Friday's show after the game on Thursday. So if you have questions, you should get them to us after the game on Thursday.
Good point by you. And I want to make a programming note on the air to Steve. I'm wondering if we can save some of these questions we didn't get to, where I can see them and we can put them up for tomorrow. I don't know if that's possible, because there's a few that have some questions about James, the stew on the power play that I do want to get to. And there are also some other ones that I didn't get to because of our discussion. We'll do that tomorrow. And Steve says it is. Okay, great. So we'll get to everybody's questions tomorrow for sure. Partner, great job as always, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right, talk to you tomorrow.
Thanks to Steve Ersnick, our producer. Thanks to you for listening. We always appreciate you guys. Hit us up on X at Bolts Radio. I am Greg Linnelli. You've been listening to Power Lunch on Lightning Radio.